Hi, my name is Laura Moss. I'm an alum of Salute Your Shorts, and I'm here with Natasha Ngaiza and Cherie Celeste Malone to talk about Natasha's film, A Mother. Welcome. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
This is a beautiful film and, you know, really moving and really striking. I have a ton of questions for you.
Thank you.
First off, why don't you tell us, for those, in case anyone watching this hasn't seen it yet, just a little bit about the film?
Yes, so it's a film about a mother. It's called A Mother. It's about a mother of two little boys who is basically contemplating an abortion. She goes to the doctor to receive abortion pills and then goes home, and we just watch her in her daily life. And while she's contemplating this abortion, she discovers or hears on the news about a missing Black girl. And there are surrounding protests that there may have been some police misconduct, that, you know, they're not sure why the girl hasn't been found yet. And she gets a little maybe obsessed with the case at the same time that she's dealing with her own kind of personal decision. So that's a summary of the film.
Yeah, and Cherie, you play the mother in this piece.
Yes, Natasha, beautiful human being, casted me and gave me the opportunity to play Agnes. I'm a little afraid to talk about it because I don't want to give anything away. But yes, I play Agnes, the mother to two beautiful boys, and the wife to Victor, played by Ezra Stevens.
Okay. And how did you find each other? How did this collaboration begin?
So it's interesting because I live in Vermont, I'm not close to any real film industry, right? There's no real film industry in Vermont. Like the closest is, we've got Boston, but that's like 3.5, 4 hours away. And then New York is like 5 hours away. And then of course, LA is on the other side of the country. So everything that we did, we had to do through Zoom. It was so funny, yeah. and just online. So I put out a casting call through, you know, the various online platforms, and just cast a wide net, like nationwide, just like looking for, you know, somebody to play the role of Agnes. And as soon as I and my producer, Ethan Murphy, and executive producer David Miranda Hardy, we saw Cherie's performance, and I was just like, okay, that's it. It's her. She's the one. She was just, and actually it wasn't even it wasn't her reading any lines from the script. It was just a monologue, I guess. I don't even remember what the first video was. But there was just something so intriguing about her performance, so natural. You know, you just kind of, not to sound creepy, but you just want to look at you know, for such a long period of time. It's like, who is this woman? Can she please be Agnes? And the interesting thing is, so I went through, we had several other great actresses try out for the role, but Cherie actually didn't get back to us for a while. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, maybe this isn't gonna happen. And like, where is she? And I was like, okay, well, I guess I can go with these other women. They were great too. But when she got back to us, it was just like, yes, she's the one.
Awesome. And Cherie, you're based in Brooklyn, is that right?
Yes. Then I'm currently in Sweden right now. Making the big move over here. A little nervous, but yes, I was based out of Brooklyn, and I think, and it was, because I'm thinking back to when Natasha had sent me, and I'm wondering if it was during my, you know, the Brooklyn hustle. When you're in New York, you are working all of these side jobs to survive, and yeah, but I absolutely remember, I think 2 of the auditions, and I think it wasn't so much as the script, it was more of, I think, Natasha, you wanted me to do more of just just acting out, I believe, from what I remember, is just looking in the mirror, or one of the scenes that you wanted me to kind of just do. Yes, very intense, but I really love the fact that I had that freedom to just kind of play around without words and dive even deeper into what they were able to see.
Yeah. And that's something that's so striking about the film, that, you know, there's dialogue, but it's sparse, and it's very much, you know, her experience. You feel like you're inside her experience in the environment. Natasha, were you nervous about chemistry? I mean, you've created a family here. So if you're casting on Zoom and you're putting this family together, maybe they look like they might be good together, but it must be nerve-wracking to see if they have chemistry.
Yeah, I was a little worried about that, although not too much, because the film really is about the mother. And it is so much like in her head. In my mind, it was kind of like a psychological thriller. That's how I'm always kind of referring to it in my head. And so it was mainly about being in her head, right? That she's going through all of this kind of anxiety, self-doubt. None of it is said out loud, but I wanted to take us on that journey where we're just in her head, in her life, in her like mental life.
Yeah.
Everybody else was.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that everyone else was really important too, but not as important as what she was bringing to the screen. So.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the cinematography, because I feel like it is very clearly from her perspective. You know, we're close on her face. We often see the family sort of backgrounded, and we see the shapes of them. We feel very present with her, and it was really beautifully shot. Can you talk about your collaboration with your cinematographer?
Yes. So Arlene Muller, who's the cinematographer for Mother, absolutely amazing, and a good friend of mine. We actually worked on my previous film together. It was a film I shot several years ago, and I knew I wanted to work with her again. I really like the idea of working with a female cinematographer, and when we were talking about the film, we had the same ideas. I mean, she was referencing Lucretia Martel, and I was like, yes, you know, like that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for, right? And so she's bringing all these just incredible ideas. She's got an amazing amount of energy, and like the work that she's done. Oh, actually, it's a really funny story. So I hadn't spoken to Arlene in a while, because since our last film, like I'd moved to Chile, I had had my 3 children. Like it had been a while since I'd shot something. And then I was watching a bunch of short films and really watching for the story, right? But then I found this one film and I thought, wow, who is the cinematographer on this? And it was the only film that I did that for. And it was her. And I was like, oh my God, it's Arlene. Of course I have to work with her again. So yeah, anyway, I just remembered that was a funny way of kind of us coming back together again. But yeah, she's amazing. And we were just really in sync, right? It was just like, she knew what I was looking for. She wasn't afraid to also dive into the story and contribute in a way that felt really collaborative. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. No, that sounds like a wonderful relationship. I think I also love working with female cinematographers, because I do feel there's an egolessness or less of an ego, and that's a huge generalization.
Right. But you know, there's something true there.
Yeah. Cherie, can you talk about working with the kids? Because I did feel a chemistry. I felt a chemistry between you and your husband, and a huge chemistry with the kids. And I know kids can be a challenge, but it felt very natural.
My little precious munchkins. Those talented little precious munchkins. Normally with me, I'm the eldest of 5. And I don't know, like even my parents normally say, Cherie, stop acting like you're my parent. So I just normally, and I have had experience babysitting, and I always feel like when I come in the room, I always treat or I tend to treat people like they're my children, or I'm like taking care of them. I love doing that. So I think for me, the biggest reason why I was able to connect is just that nurturing nature, and also just wanting, they're so adorable. Like you get on set and just hearing the youngest one speak, he was so cute. Like I holding it together in the scene was so hard, but they were amazing, and it made it so easy. And just seeing like, just being able to watch it and feel like just had me relive everything on set. It was just so easy. It was so simple.
Mm. And Natasha, I mean, it seemed like their lines of the kids, my impression was that you were flexible, that you were kind of giving them a general direction and letting them be themselves, and you could really feel that. But can you talk about that as the writer, director?
Yeah. So I had, a script, I had lines for them, but I was, flexible in that I thought, okay, this is, the youngest was 4 at the time.
Wow.
And then the oldest one was 9. And he's very kind of like this responsible guy. His mother is also amazing. His mother was also in the film. She was the mother of the missing girl.
Okay.
And so, but I was like, it's working with kids is difficult. So whatever they can bring is whatever they can bring. I was surprised that they remembered their lines. So almost everything that I wrote, I think everything I wrote was in there.
Oh, wow. It feels so natural. It just feels like they're saying whatever. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I have 3 little girls, and a lot of it was taken from my, especially the dinner table scene, experiences at dinner. And yeah, a lot of it was that, just like ripping from real life.
Now, what year, what month, when was this film actually shot?
It was last August in Vermont. Yeah, August 2019.
And it's in the middle of a festival sort of run. Is that right now?
Yes. Yeah, it is. Yep, right in the middle of it.
And how are you finding people responding to it at this moment? I mean, it feels like it was written for this moment.
Yeah. So that's been interesting. When I was shooting it, even when I was writing it, a part of me thought, well, the whole Black Lives Matter movement is kind of dying down. And we have this scene where people are chanting Black Lives Matter and, police misconduct. I thought, is this going to feel dated in a way? In that, people aren't really, it doesn't feel very like now. It feels a little, a couple of years ago or something. And then, of course, we're back here again. And so that's been fascinating. Yeah, I mean, it's sad too, but very, very real. And that was the reason why I wrote it, because I came to the story from my own personal experience, being a Black mother living in the United States, where even if I'm married, I have a nice job, I live a nice life, but there's always this kind of undercurrent of tension and anxiety about raising Black children in this country. And, when I was pregnant with my 3rd born, ProPublica released this huge study about how Black women are X number of times more likely to die in childbirth. And it did nothing to do with education or class. It was just like, being a Black woman, you're more likely to die in childbirth. Yeah. And I stopped reading that study immediately. I was like, okay, let me not, because I was already anxious I had already had some pretty bad experiences in labor, and a lot of them were racially, little moments of racism that were then reflected in the study. And so, I came to the story from that experience of like, and how much all these other stories also affect you kind of mentally, psychologically, right? Even if it's not, your son that's being killed by the police officer, it's something that weighs heavy on you. And it's something that you carry with you as a black mother in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, the film opens in a doctor's office, and I was struck by the way it was shot. That how sort of disjointed the doctors were in their shot, and sort of how disconnected it felt. Felt really emotional. It felt like it was that we are put inside her perspective. I mean, through the whole film, but especially there. Cherie, can you talk about that? I mean, it's heavy stuff like that. The doctors, I don't want to say too much about I guess we talked about, the abortion stuff and this fear and this kind of ongoing missing child arc that she's experiencing. It's a lot. So how did you deal with that heaviness as an actor?
I think for me, the biggest thing I think that I had to get over, especially dealing with the topic, was something that I personally was like having conversations with, well, not necessarily about the script, but stuff that I've had in my past with my family, just in terms of, our belief in how, abortion is a no-no. So it was me kind of going within myself, and especially being a millennial, kind of deciding, just realizing that my perspective is different from my family in many ways, but also trying to find that middle ground and trying to help my grandparents and my parents' generation understand where our perspective is coming from, and that at the end of the day, especially trying to understand where Agnes is coming from, that it is, of course, the choice between her and her husband, but that of, ultimately her choice. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. Because, Agnes has to deal with this. But I think it was a little scary too, to constantly, I'm used to playing characters that are a bit more just not happy-go-lucky, but it was such a contrast to all of the characters that I've played that it was slightly scary in a way that I didn't want to let Natasha down. I didn't want to let the cast and crew down. And it was a little bit of anxiety because there were so many scenes in which there's no dialogue. And in a way that's harder because you have to pull deeper and truly have a motive. But coming out of it, I tell you, there's so many, it's easier. And after having watched it, it's just like, it's an amazing experience. And it's just something that still, I think, has stayed with me and conversations that I'm continuously having now, but more so now with my family as well.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I mean, there are such big issues tackled in this film, but it doesn't feel like an issue film. It feels like both of you were able to just access the emotionality of this person, and that's what makes it so powerful. Yeah, let me see. I have my list of questions. We've gotten through most of them. Well, please cut this out. Yeah, please.
I like that you say that it's not an issue film necessarily, because I think that, yeah, I really like that because it is about abortion and it is a pro-choice film, essentially. I'm not, but it's more, it is also I think this emotional journey was so much more important to me, right? And also that we have a woman that isn't like the statistics. It's not like the kind of characters that you maybe traditionally see in abortion films, where it's a teenager who, or someone who's super poor, or someone who's been raped, and like, not to discount those stories. All of those are really important. But I was interested in seeing, like, what if we see a character that we don't normally associate with abortion. I found out a few years ago that mothers are more likely to choose an abortion, people women who are already mothers, than single women. And I remember being shocked at the time, like, how come nobody talks about this, right? I mean, I guess people do, but it's not
depicted. I
no.
agree with you. Like that's
Yeah.
not in our consciousness in that
Right.
way.
Right.
Yeah.
But I thought that, that was so fascinating, and that yeah, and that there's this kind of and it doesn't make them bad mothers, right? It doesn't mean that they're not, that they don't love children, or that they're super happy with their choice either, necessarily, right? Anyway, yeah, I wanted to add that because I like that it's more of an emotional story than necessarily an issue.
I wanted to ask you about the score. I only really noticed it as soon as she sees there's a vision that she sees. I'm going to try to not be too explicit about what she sees towards the middle of the film. And that's when I really felt it. I felt like it really elevated that section of the film into a dream world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk about the score and working with your composer?
Yeah. So such an interesting process. So part of the film was actually done in Chile, in Santiago, Chile. And that's because my husband, who was the executive producer on the film, is Chilean and is still working with a post-production, Filmo Sonido, it's called, in Santiago, Chile. And so he has these connections, and I know them also, and they were like, we'd be happy to, edit the film and do the mix and everything. Color correction was actually done in LA, Vermont, LA, Chile. So in working with, this is sort of a roundabout. I'm sorry that this isn't like very clear. I'm trying to put all the pieces together in a way that like makes sense. So we were working with a Chilean post-production studio. And as part of that, well, actually, he wasn't part of that studio. But my husband, so when my husband worked for the studio initially, he was a sound designer. He was in sound, the sound element of film, sound post sound. And he's also a musician. So I worked a lot with my husband on like, this is what I want, right? And what I wanted was, I really liked this kind of horror film element, right? Like I mentioned before, I thought of the film as kind of like a psychological thriller in a way, but I really like bringing in these elements of kind of a horror film. We see that in the Night of the Living Dead. There's a little clip of Night of the Living Dead in there, which also I liked because that film is also very political in the end, right? It's about zombies, and it seems kind of silly, and in the end you realize, oh my God, this is like a Black Lives Matter kind of film, actually.
Yeah.
And so one of his musician, a close friend of his, is a musician. He's worked with him for many years. Jose Miguel Candela. He actually went to Cuba, so this is a very roundabout story, and had worked with Cuban musicians and they'd done these little mini kind of sound songs, these little sound bites, and he had a collection of them. And so, and it was the kind of feel that I was looking for. So we basically just went through and chose from this already pre-recorded sound stuff that I really liked. I mean, it was just like very emotionally charged and kind of horrific sounding, and there was the kind of tension that I was looking for, and I really like it when music is a character in a way, if it does appear, right? I didn't want to use music too much at all, but then when it was there, I wanted it to be sort of, a character, if you will. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does.
Cuba, but that's kind of how we did it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it does, it adds to that kind of anxiety-ridden, tension-building moment in the film. Well, I know we only have a few minutes, so I'm going to ask some wrap-up questions for both of you. So what is next in your artistic practice? Do you have something you're working on right now that's coming up that you want to talk about? We'll start with Cherie.
Currently, I'm on pause just for a little while. I'm very tempted to jump back in, but I'm trying to get my residency or residence permit in Sweden. And then I'll be able to travel and leave and head back and still do work in the States, because I see things are coming back, or at least trying to. So,
yeah. Great.
I have begun writing a feature, and the painful process of writing. Laura, I know you. I'm sure I'd be interested to hear how you kind of approach it. I feel like there's always a lot of tears for me, and like self-doubt, but it's just part of the, it's just part of the process. It's like, well, gotta go through it. So I'm in those stages, and I'm also, I teach at Middlebury College, and so we are gearing up for a semester online and seeing where that's going to take us. And that's kind of overwhelming in a way, but kind of exciting too. I think there are a lot of creative possibilities there. So yeah.
I mean, I mentioned to you before we started that I'm teaching for the first time in the fall, and I feel like there's going to be a huge opportunity to learn from the students who are now going to have to, we're a level playing field now. We all are first-time filmmakers in the COVID era. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yes.